When Congress passed the $900 billion COVID relief bill with veto-proof majorities on Monday, it sounded like a done deal until Tuesday.
It really is a disgrace.
Sidelined from direct negotiations, that comment was not only a swipe at Democrats, but also the president's Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, who brokered the deal, and Republicans too.
The president had all year and had the entire negotiation to express his problems with the bill. He didn't raise any of these issues. In fact, his negotiator was in the room, signed off on the package. The president is melting down.
President Trump called for larger direct payments to most Americans.
I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000.
Through tweets, Democratic leaders seized the moment. At last, the president has agreed to $2,000. Let's do it, tweeted Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Speaking from the Canal Dock Boathouse in New Haven, members of Connecticut's congressional delegation said they're all for it.
I'm for doing it. I'm in.
It's going to be on the floor tomorrow.
But
if it means killing the bill, this extra money should be done in the next Congress and the next bill.
Democrats can be accused of playing politics too.
Throughout the summer, Democrats cruelly blocked COVID relief legislation.
In addition to bigger direct payments, President Trump claims the COVID relief bill has very little to do with COVID.
$505 million to Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala.
But it's called foreign aid, and it's part of the spending package that Congress combined with the COVID relief bill to keep the government open. But then again, there's also
$7 million for reef fish management, $25 million to combat Asian carp, $2.5 million to count the number of amberjack fish in the Gulf of Mexico.
Those legislative pet projects are sometimes called political pork, and they fatten most pieces of legislation.
There's parts of the bill that I like. There are other parts that I don't like.
I asked the Connecticut delegation, is it appropriate during a time of national crisis?
Yeah, I have a number of really important projects to me that are in this spending bill. The cancellation of the sale of Plum Island, funding for Long Island Sound. It's our job as members of the Senate to try to get as much funding in these bills for our states as possible.
And with the bill itself being more than 5,500 pages long, did anybody really read it?
I wish I had read every line. It's something that we like to do.
And you might be wondering, if this bill passed with a veto-proof majority, then why does it matter if the president refuses to sign it? Coming up on the news at 5, I'll explain the rarely used pocket veto and why it matters.